Shabbat Shalom. I am tired. I'm tired, because my 9-month-old thinks sleeping is for chumps, though not as tired as my wife, to be fair. But for real, I'm tired of having to attend securities-themed Zooms. I'm tired of having to learn new acronyms of different Jewish organizations focused on keeping us safe. I'm tired of having to read dozens of articles to find all of the pertinent information. I'm tired of officials and leaders saying to us that things that are obviously anti-Semitic are not. I'm tired of people not understanding or believing that hating the Jewish people, that targeting the Jewish people, that acting against the Jewish people is also terrible, in addition to the other forms of hate. I'm tired of wondering, do I take another Saturday morning and instead of teaching some of the great wisdom of our Torah to talk about the unending scourge that is anti-Semitism? But here we are. And 1 week ago, right now, another synagogue, one that easily could have been us, had a very awful and terrible Shabbat that, thank God, ended with the health and safety of all 4 who were taken hostage. So we stand at this moment, which in our cycle of Torah reading is perhaps the most important Shabbat of the year, the moment where our people finally arrived at Sinai. It is the moment of transition. In the book of Genesis, we were just a family, learning to work together, trying to set a standard for our future peoplehood. In the first half of the book of Exodus, we were slaves, or we were followers of Moses and God. Today is the first time we get something positive. Here's who we are. We are the ones to whom God appeared. We are the ones who arrived at Mount Sinai. We are the ones whom God spoke to and said, I am the Lord your God, and told us to honor our parents and to keep each other safe and to keep track of each other and to be good. So what can we learn? What can we know? I think that there is something about today's moment at Sinai that is positive and wonderful and hides the darker other side. Ultimately, what's happening is God is telling us, I choose you. It is the beginning of this concept of the Jewish people being the chosen ones. And during the Parsha, it is a wonderful thing. It's a beautiful thing. It tells us how much God loves us. It talks about a special relationship with special responsibilities. But the flip side of that concept is the same thing anyone who's ever been to an elementary school classroom whom the teacher seems to favor one student over others knows. That chosenness comes with a burden as well. The concept of having a special relationship with God is at its core infuriating to others. It upends their notion of reality and existence. So what can we learn? What is this cost of being Jewish in the world? I want to share 2 different perspectives I heard, 2 different articles I read, and then focus on what I think is good about this moment, some hope and some possibility. The first was an article in The Atlantic by Yair Rosenberg, who talked about the way, one of the fascinating things about anti-Semitism is the way it works differently than other forms of hate. If you think back, unfortunately not too many years ago, to the horrible events at Pittsburgh, it was almost the same story as the horrible events in Texas, but the 2 perpetrators couldn't be more different. In Pittsburgh, it was a white supremacist who wanted to stop black Muslims from coming to the country. In Texas, it was a black Muslim who wanted to free an Al-Qaeda operative. Those two people were never in the same room. Those two people never planned anything together in their life, but they had the exact same understanding of the world. They said, if I want my thing to happen, I have to hurt the Jews. They're the ones who are in power. They're the ones who have this core, this thing that they get to be the ones who make the choices, who make things happen. So the fundamental thing we learn from that is anti-Semitism is not just a stereotype. It's not just a hate. Rosenberg tells us it's also a conspiracy theory, and one flexible enough to meet every ideology. On one of the many Zoom calls I've been on in the last several years, one Jewish leader said that to be a responsible Jewish person, you have to be swivel-headed. Because whichever way you look, there are those who seem to think it is fine to hate the Jewish people. The second is the Vox, an article from Vox, which is not a publication I normally read, but it showed up in my Apple News feed like a good modern person. And the article focused on why this FBI agent at the beginning of this horrible event got up and said, this isn't an event targeting the Jews. As if he'd walked into a mall and happened to catch a rabbi and 3 people, and not a synagogue on Shabbat. And he said that there is this problem, this core, in almost all aspects of life, of living, of leadership, of institutional existence, where it is either the anti-Semitism isn't believed, or it's downplayed, or it's ignored, or it's other. And part of that is because, look at us. We look like we're doing all right. The Jewish people, of course, has people in need in our own communities. But as a minority in America, we are a ridiculous success story. We went from people regularly putting signs, no Jews allowed, country clubs being formed to exclude us. Do you know how we got to be lawyers? Because no one else wanted to be lawyers at the time. And so Jews stepped up and filled into that slot in the world. And now we live at a moment where there aren't Jewish quotas of how many Jews to keep them at a low in institutions. Most major universities have a Jewish studies major program. So you could go and spend your entire secular university time focused on Jewish studies. That's unbelievable. Unbelievable. You can buy an unending slew of coffee table books that will tell you of the 100 most famous Jews in almost every field here in America. That success is unbelievable, and it makes people like this FBI agent feel like it can't really be against the Jews because they're okay. They're doing all right. Or maybe he thought they are kind of the ones who run the world. Because, to be honest, sometimes it looks that way. So the second thing we learn is that if we are going to take anti-Semitism seriously as ourselves, it's going to be on us to point it out. It's going to be on us to say it's not enough to say this is a terrorist act. You have to say this was an anti-Semitic terrorist act. This was a terrorist act specifically targeting the Jewish people. The rabbi, the hero who saved his congregants, said that this man fundamentally believed he could walk into any synagogue and that rabbi would be able to get a hold of the chief rabbi of America, who I'm very disappointed is not me, by the way, who was the rabbi at Central Synagogue in America, in New York, who he decided, and that she would be able to call Biden on her secret Biden bat phone, and he would release whoever she wanted from jail because she told him to. That was his understanding of the way the world worked. And while it's extreme, I don't know how far off many of our other leaders actually believe the world works. So, the third thing that's not like the other. The first two, if you are with me, are pretty depressing. But the good news is that in the last week, I have had briefings from, I'm trying to get all of the acronyms correct, SCN, a national security network focused specifically on training and keeping the Jewish people safe. The Anti-Defamation League, an entire institution focused on tracking, stopping, and defending against anti-Semitism. CSI, a local community, which is not the fun TV show, but is the local community security initiative with enormous funds and focused on helping make sure we have expert personnel to guide us in keeping our own self safe, our own institutions safe. CSS, a volunteer-run organization to train lay people to help be a part of the security apparatus. Our own Black Tie, our personal our private security firm who keeps us safe. Brian out front, if you see him, really say hello and remember what he is doing. Think about last week and remember what his job is and give him a thank you on the way out. The second precinct, who, thank God, like to hang out in our parking lot, frankly. Let it be so. Wherever they want to be, we're happy to have them. The FBI, Homeland, it is amazing. It is amazing. And in fact, I had two different conversations. One was a podcast, I don't know if that counts as a conversation, and one was an actual conversation. I was talking with one of the ADL leaders who came to speak here. And he said the Anti-Defamation League actually has two missions. It's to focus on anti-Semitism, but really to stop all hate everywhere. Great goal. And he said until about 5 years ago, the institution was majorly focused on other forms of hate. But the rise in anti-Semitism has had them pivot back to their roots to focus primarily on anti-Semitism. And the second thing was from Daniel Hartman, who is the leader of the Shalom Hartman Institute in Jerusalem. Really interesting guy. If you're looking for another podcast, his series called Identity Crisis is outstanding. He's fantastic. And one of the things he said is maybe what's happening is that the blip is over. And he said for all of Jewish existence, except for about 25 to 30 years, like from, let's say, 1975 to 2005. I don't know, I'm making up years. But roughly speaking, for all of Jewish existence, Jews always had to look over their shoulder. There were different amounts of safety at different times, but never total safety. And perhaps what's happening in America is we're returning to that not great, but regular status quo that of Jewish existence in which people don't get us, in which people don't understand how we could be different, how we could be other. So, chosenness is awesome. Chosenness is great. It inspires us. It supports us. It lifts us up. It reminds us that to be a Jew means to do, we were just very briefly on News 12 last night because our congregant said, it's really cold outside and we're lucky that our kids have 5 or 6 jackets to choose from. And we built a relationship with a school in Queens that services shelters, and we're sending 150 warm weather packets because we know that that's what they need and we want to be there for you. That's what it means to be a Jew, which, by the way, we don't have enough yet. You should consider supporting that program. It'll be in the announcements later, and it's on our website. As an aside. But those things that make it great, it means that when my friend in LA, her and her young twins, they're not even yet a year, got COVID, meant that I instantly got an invite to a meal train so that all of her friends would come together and send her dinner each night because that's what Jews do. We take care of each other. We do what needs to be done. It is amazing, and it comes with a price tag. Requires vigilance to pay attention and call out anti-Semitism when we see it. It requires that we support those organizations that both keep us safe and stand up to anti-Semitism, like some of the acronyms I mentioned earlier. It requires leaving behind our rose-colored glasses. That the world is not perfect. And that even those that mean well might be even unintentionally harboring some notions that might make it hard for them to see anti-Semitism when it appears. And so this Shabbat, I wish each of us the strength to be vigilant, the resources to support those who defend us, the wisdom to be sharp and careful, but also to remember that we stood at Sinai. The mountain trembled before us, the clouds parted, and God came down and said, I am the Lord your God. It's great to be a Jew. Shabbat